You know, what happens in D.C. doesn't always stay in D.C., especially when you have bold leaders like my good friend, Michigan State Representative Joseph Aragona. He's bringing those conversations back home. This week, the rep joined his fellow lawmakers in our nation's capital for the Michigan State Leadership Conference, where they met directly with senior officials in the Trump administration. They met with Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Turner, and Secretary McMahon. I mean, they talked anything from trade to health, education to housing. You know, the thing about it, these aren't just talking points. They're the pillars of the America First agenda. And I know this, at being on this radio show for the last 6 months, Michigan is ready to lead under the leadership of Speaker Matt Hall. Rep, welcome to the Morning Answer.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it was a great experience being out in D.C. You know, my colleagues and I got to be directly at the Eisenhower Executive Office building, which is right next to the West Wing. And I really appreciate the Trump administration taking the time to meet with my colleagues and I, and with the speaker, just on the Trump administration's, you know, their points, the things that they need that they're trying to get done, the America First agenda, and then obviously just take questions from us and just to see how we can fit into that playbook, and then also to kind of see what we're seeing on the ground as well in Michigan, so that they can understand what's going on back here in our home state.
And Representative, I know you guys spoke with Secretary Lutnick, who I just adore, and I know he's emphasized rebuilding the American industry. Were there any trade policies or opportunities that were discussed that could help revitalize Michigan's, especially in their manufacturing and automotive policies?
Yeah, we obviously, I mean, we discussed the auto industry for quite some time, obviously being from Michigan. But, you know, his high level discussion was basically just about the tariffs, right?
Yeah.
And what he was going over was, you know, look, this 25% tariff, that's not meant to make revenue. That's meant to drive jobs back to the United States. That's meant to drive jobs back to Michigan, because they've been leaving, and America hasn't been first the last couple of decades. And that's what they're trying to do. And that's what they're trying to defend. They're trying to defend Michigan. They're trying to help us grow. So he was an incredibly smart guy. I mean, to hear him talk and to understand kind of where he's come from and how he breaks down arguments, he was a very interesting fellow to talk to.
Yeah, he is super sharp. Did you feel like you came out of that? Oh, by the way, Mike Coolidge here. Nice to meet you, Representative.
Hey, Mike. Good to meet you.
Did you feel like you can come back to your constituents in Michigan and say that things are going to get better if one of the versions of this bill gets through? I know it's not in your house. We're talking about the U.S. Congression, you know, the Senate and the House, and getting that eventually. But the big beautiful bill, however it winds up where the chips fall. How is that going to help Michigan?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different things that all the secretaries talked about, and at some point they each kind of mentioned the big beautiful bill and something that they were working on that was in there. You know, something that I'm specifically working on in the House is housing, right? How do we put more housing units on the market? And that's something that Secretary Turner really mentioned and was really touching on, and something that he's trying to push. Obviously, all different types of housing, and he's got a lot of different types of housing programs, but, you know, he's really trying to push, you know, getting housing on the market, really trying to unleash developers, allowing them to put housing units on the market quickly and efficiently without a lot of red tape. And those are things that are in that one big beautiful bill. And that's actually things that we're trying to do here in Michigan. We'll have things coming out in the fall on that. So I think that's something that we can really touch on here in Michigan. And I think that's a lot of what our building community is going to appreciate at the federal level. And then obviously here in Michigan, in the fall at the state level.
You know, Representative, I know that part of the policy agenda that you guys are pushing out is school choice and local control as it relates to education. What was it like speaking to Secretary McMahon about returning control back to educators and parents and local communities? Were there any? Did they discuss school choice or the curriculum reform at all?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that. And to be honest, I'm not a parent. So it was very interesting for me to hear how much red tape is even at that with different types of, for instance, like accreditations, even in higher education, types of facilities and things like that. So it was very interesting for me to learn about those types of things. That's definitely one of my weaker points. So I was definitely learning a lot there. So she was very, very, very smart. One of the things that I didn't realize is she kind of looked and said, down the street is the Department of Education. The average bureaucrat there is making double what an average teacher salary is in Michigan. So where are our tax dollars actually being served and where are they actually going? And that's really kind of puts it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really what she was hitting on was there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of kind of a bureaucratic mess on who can accredit you both at, a lower level and even at a higher level when you get into like these collegiate institutions. But then where are your tax dollars actually going? If your tax dollars are going to educate children, that's great. But how much of your tax dollars are actually going to educate children? And that's really what we have to look at and kind of drill down on.
Yeah, and Representative, before I get to the next question, I should have said this at the onset. How are the people of Macomb County doing? I know there was just a tragedy that happened there with the weather. Is everybody okay? Everybody doing well there?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. We're all doing good. Just south of me in Fraser is where that tornado touched down. We have had some damage, but everybody seems to be going okay, save for a couple of flooded basements here and there. But other than that, everybody seems to be doing all right.
Representative, what does it mean to you that Michigan lawmakers are invited into these rooms? Do you believe the country is starting to take notice of what you guys are doing here in Michigan as a partner in the national recovery to bring and make America great again?
Yeah, I really do, and I think that I think that the Trump administration clearly isn't forgetting about Michigan. I think that the Trump administration sees Michigan is the key to America's recovery. It's not just a place to pick up a couple of electoral votes and then you can forget about us for the next 4 years. It's they're realizing that we were the auto capital of the world, and they want us to be that again. They realize that we are one of the keys to aerospace and defense with all of the companies that we have here in Southeast Michigan surrounding aerospace and defense. We have some of the most fresh water in the entire world here in Michigan. So they see what a pivotal state we are. And I think that's why they're paying so close of attention to us.
You probably know my friend Steve Gruber, who does radio in Michigan. Yeah, he and I were lucky enough to go into the executive office building and broadcast from the White House a couple of years ago. It was right before the USMCA. He got to interview President Trump because President Trump definitely values Michigan, and campaigned in Michigan a bit more than he did here in Illinois, where we live. But one thing we did not see was the giant construction and new flags that have been installed in the White House. You got a right in-person view of that yesterday, and also the people were bellyaching about the Rose Garden. It's being adjusted a little bit to make room for some things. Give us the word picture of that from what you saw there yesterday.
It was. First of all, I've never actually been in the White House, so I kind of had my business suit on. I was going in like, all right, we got these business meetings, and then once you make it past the security gate, you kind of start to tingle a little bit. Like, holy smokes, I'm actually in the White House for a business meeting. This is, I'm starting to get the chills a little bit here. So to kind of see everything, to see all the history of the building, to see what's going on there. I even got to check out the press room and the Oval Office at one point. So it was pretty cool. And to be honest, I was a little awestruck on all of it. So.
Yeah, I know that's what it was when I was there last. I was there in February. I'll be back in July. There's another roundtable that I'll be a part of in July. Representative, one last question. Where are we standing with the fiscal year 26 budget? I know there's a lot of back and forth going on right now about a lot of the earmarks, and you spoke about getting rid of the wasteful spending, things like the coffee maker, the $4,500 coffee maker. Speak to the people of Michigan as to, because you guys do budgeting different than we do here in Illinois. Only one party is in control of the budgeting. Republicans have no say in how the budget is done. I know you guys do have conversations with the other side of the aisle. Where do we stand on fiscal year 26 budget? Do you think it's going to pass in time?
Yeah, so I think we're coming back next week to get our budgets out. I don't think we're going to actually have a budget on the governor's desk by July 1. We might, but, it might take a little longer than that. Speaking of this $4,500 coffee maker, I don't know if you saw, but the person who bought that $4,500 coffee maker, the attorney general of this state, actually served some warrants on that particular person, as well as a few others at the MEDC, to take some of their cell phones and some other things to do some investigation. So that was kind of interesting. So I think there's going to be some more breaking on that here in the next couple of weeks and months. But as far as the budget process goes, we did pass our K through 12 budget. We also passed our higher ed budgets last week. This next week, out of the House, we'll be passing our some of our other budgets for the other departments. So we'll get that out. And at that point, as you said, Illinois, it's more of a uniparty. You pass a budget. With us here in Michigan, at that point, that's when we're going to sit down with the Senate, which, some of those discussions have already been happening, and really hammer out the final details. The problem is, the Senate already passed their budget, but it's unconstitutional. They overspent by $1 billion, and they also have line items that clearly it shows that they wanted to spend more money. So they didn't really do exactly the greatest job in the world. They did a great job for the lobbyists, because, I'm sure they sat there and spend what they were asked to spend, but they didn't exactly cut where they needed to cut. So the adults are in the room now. We're going to do our best to pass a fiscally responsible budget. And at that point, we're also going to, negotiate with them to say, all right, what is it going to take to actually get this to the governor's desk?
Yeah. Well, Representative, I know you're pressed for time. I want to thank you so much again for joining us today. I always thoroughly enjoy your conversation. I don't know if you're going to be in the Detroit area, but I'll be there this Sunday until Tuesday. I'm doing a pastor's breakfast with Pastor Lorenzo Sewell up in the Michigan area this weekend, on Tuesday, rather.
Good
guy.
Oh, you want to say something, Mike?
No. I didn't want to interrupt, but hopefully you can make that. I just wanted to ask Joe, are the Tigers for real?
They beat us.
We're a little bit of a younger team, but I think we are. I mean, I think people are asking that right now, but after the All-Star break, I think when we're winning a couple of weeks after the All-Star break, I think people are going to go from, are they for real, to, you know what, the Tigers are for real. I think that's when people are going to really realize it.
They have the best record in baseball.
Yeah, they beat us. They beat the Cubs. So, Rep, I was at all three games between the Cubs and Tigers, and I caught, because I wore my Trump that I have on right now, Trump Van shirt on. I caught a lot of grief, but I got more people. But who is that stud of a pitcher you guys have? Scooby.
Skubal.
Oh my goodness.
He should just get the Cy Young right now.
Yes, he is amazing, sir.
Yeah,
really
he lights out.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Representative. Aragona. He represents the Michigan 60th House District. Thanks so much for joining us on The Morning Answer.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
We'll be right back.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today. Gain insight into building strong marriages and raising godly children with Focus on the Family with Jim Daly each weekday at 11:30 a.m. on our sister station, AM 1160. Hope for your life.
Perhaps you're a collector, or perhaps all of a sudden you have a collection. Maybe it's an inheritance. How do you know what it's worth? This is Sean Thompson for Donley Auction. The